There you go. There you go.
And happy almost New Year.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. Before we get started, everybody should know who I am, you know who Nina is. This is not going to be a monologue. I am not going to be the only one talking. So I expect to hear from you guys, because if I don't, and that leads me to believe either one, you don't care, or either two, it don't make sense. So I need to hear from you guys, because you're the ones in the classroom working with the children, okay? All right, okay, so we're gonna be talking about caring for infants and toddlers. And so we're gonna go and cover quite a few things as we go along. So, as we are looking at this, these are the things that we're gonna be concentrating on. We're gonna look at young infants, look at things about young infants, look at things about mobile infants, toddlers, and then also talk a little bit about child abuse, because we can never have too much of that, you know, as we go on. And then there's gonna always be an opportunity for questions and some comments, you know, as we move forward. So, with that, the thing that we're looking at, number one, is when we're looking at this, we're talking about young infants. Young infants, they categorize anywhere between the age of 0 to 9 months. Young infants, the only thing that they want from us right now is security. That's the main thing that we need. They need to know that there is somebody, an adult, that they can depend on, bottom line. So with that, you got to build that trust. So if we're building trust, one of the things we build that trust is by spending some one-on-one time with them. One-on-one time does just not mean just sitting there holding them. One-on-one time means getting involved. It means providing, as they say, that secure relationship as we go along, and to help them feel safe in what they're doing. So they've got their own way of communicating, as you know. You know, so you listen to their sounds, so you know exactly what message they're trying to send. You know exactly when they're hungry, when somebody's wet, when somebody is tired. Those are the things and the signs that we need to recognize, you know, as we're with them. And then look at their facial expressions, because eventually they'll start making some facial expressions, you know, as they go along. And that's just telling you what their baby needs. So that's what we want to work on. So part of that too is talking to them. Talk to infants even if they cannot talk. And not necessarily, one thing I think, Jocelyn and I were discussing, one of the observers said that when a baby, they were talking about the toddlers, older infants, making some noises to mimic those. I know we normally do that with young infants, you know, the ba 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 or whatever, you know, but then follow it with some words. I really never heard it with the mobile infants. I'm still working on trying to find some research on that. I haven't seen that yet. But it's all about talking to them, teaching them. This is where we are teaching them back and forth conversation, even though there are no words there for them yet. But that's back and forth conversation. They'll know, hey, I say something, you make some cooing noises. I say something back. The baby makes more cooing noises. It goes back and forth, back and forth. The same thing when we get to mobile infants. You know, they're starting to babble. They babble, we can babble, but we can add words to it, you know, as we go along. So babies learn. That's because babies learn by hearing speech. I had a friend that I did some training with, and she was from Africa. In Africa, the men sit in one room, the women in one room, and the children in another. They don't talk to their children directly like we do as Americans. And the reasoning is, their logic is, well, babies can't talk, so why do I need to talk to them? But this mother said, I didn't realize the importance of them hearing the language. So they should have heard the language. She said she had to go home and apologize to her son. He was 40-something years old. She said, I have to apologize to you because I didn't talk to you as a baby. She said, I thought Americans were crazy when mothers be pushing their little babies in the stroller and they just be talking to them. It's like, why are you talking to this kid? It can't say nothing. But she said she realized the importance of it, and that's what we need to do without them understanding that while those children were in that other room, they heard the adults talking. So we want to make sure that we're doing enough talking with the infants where it will help them to begin to form their language skills. And then, of course, the main thing too with these young infants, we need to get to know their schedule. Each child should be on a different schedule. Everybody should not be on the same schedule. Everybody should not sleep at the same time, and everybody should not necessarily eat at the same time or be fed at the same time. You got a room full of 4 babies. Let's say 8 babies. 2 staff in there. You can't feed everybody at the same time. And you cannot sit them and lay them down on the floor and hold a bottle over here and a bottle over here, because that is against licensing regulations. You have to physically hold that child in your arms, as we are looking at that. So we need to make sure that we learn their schedules, learn their eating schedules, learn their sleeping schedules and everything. And then as they get older, they'll be able to adapt more to a schedule, a routine schedule, where you'll be able to predict that, as they go along. Another thing with young infants we need to look at is the fact that we need to play some games with them. Whether it's singing nursery rhymes, doing patty cake, doing the wheels on the bus, doing some baby yoga, anything, that's going to be engaging, for them. And of course, eventually getting back, help me out, Nina.
There you go.
Okay. I didn't need her to go that far. Helping them to manipulate different materials as they do tummy time, and you have different feelings materials that they may be able to access. Silky ribbon, crinkly paper, anything that's a little different types of fabrics that have, whether it's corduroy or silk or just plain cotton, things that the baby can feel with them. And then you talk about those things. Oh, that feels kind of bumpy, or that is smooth. So you're giving them some beginnings, as they go through, because eventually it's going to help them as they get older with that critical thinking, and they'll be learning more, from that. So let's look at this quick video. It's very short.
Exhausted from long hours and disheartened by seeing your
This
patients
is
in
just
the
about
hospital
infant
again
development
and
and
again.
physical
Then listen
development.
up.
The first 3 years of life are characterized by dramatic changes in children's physical abilities. Parents, caregivers, and teachers can support young children to develop the abilities they will need to learn to walk, run, and engage in other physical activities. Babies need to spend time on their bellies to develop the chest and arm strength that they'll soon use in crawling. Adults can encourage babies to develop these muscles by giving them adequate tummy time and by placing interesting toys just within reach. It's also important that babies have as much time as possible to move freely, unrestricted by baby seats, playpens, or exercisers. When adults move with a baby, the baby feels a sensation of motion. This helps them to understand how bodies move through space. Adults can help this understanding develop by rocking babies, taking them for walks, and dancing with them. When children first start walking, their stride is unsteady and variable, and falls are common. Parents and caregivers can help toddlers develop solid walking and then running skills by providing lots of opportunities for toddlers to move in different ways throughout the day.
Very good, Nico.
Toddlers will master walking and running skills more quickly if they can experiment with walking on different types of surfaces, such as soft mats and then hard floors. Adults can help by providing different walking challenges, such as walking on a soft balance beam and walking or running up and down hills.
Is there big bumps in the way up here? The bumpy road? You want to go this way? Let's go check over here. Okay, real careful because I see there's pavement down here.
Encouraging toddlers to try moving in new ways will support their physical development.
Please jump for me.
Can you jump in your room? Jump. Digo, salta.
Jump, let me see you jump.
A simple, inexpensive obstacle course is a great way to challenge toddlers to try new ways of moving.
Over the hoop. Stepping on the circles. Now it gets a little bigger right here. We have to step higher. It's taller. And down, we're gonna step down right here. Oops.
As toddlers master these skills, they will gain confidence in their own abilities.
Okay. All right, so, any thoughts on that? Does any of that look familiar? Do you see that within your classroom of your children?
I see it. I see it. I see it. I see it.
Okay, so,
To
when
some
we,
extent, we don't do walking and all, so we can crawl an obstacle.
yeah. And that would be great for them because they like doing stuff, crawling through tunnels or an empty box or,
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
you know, anything along that line. So let's look at baby development, 1 to 3 months. Now, we're not gonna go through all of these. So basically, as they say, their bodies and brains are learning to live outside, in the outside world. So at this age, this is what we're looking at. They're beginning to smile. It's gonna be an early on thing, and that's what we need to do back. If you noticed in the video that the caregiver was smiling back at the baby. It's nothing worse than being in the classroom and you all ticked off for the day and you're not even smiling at the baby. The baby ain't done nothing to you. You know, leave that stuff outside. Come in and be joyful about the fact that, hey, we are going to be together today and I'm happy to see you. So that's one of the things that we look at. Smile back at them. Use that tummy time. We need to make sure that we are making sure that we are using that and taking advantage of that. Helping babies to grip things where they may just hold it, you know, within their hand. And if they're holding it, we can talk about what they're holding. Oh, you're holding the rattle in your hand. That rattle makes noise. You know, just routine conversation. Taking swipes at dangling objects, if we have the little play things that can go over them where they can reach up and try to grab. Those are some of the things that we can do for that very young, that 6 weeks to 3 month old age. Now, they're also learning to track things. So we don't want to be too fast in moving around because they won't be able to necessarily track it, because young babies, when they're first born, they can only see no more than 14 inches maybe in front of them. So their eyesight is actually coming into play. And the ideal colors for babies, very young babies, to see in the beginning is black and white. And not necessarily being bombarded with a lot of color. So we want to think about, you know, how we can do that and work with them. So as they get older, of course, things are going to change. They're going to start rolling over. So we want to make sure that we have the space on the floor for them to be able to roll over. They'll start to laugh. That way we can do some extra fun things. We can talk about or do some funny nursery rhymes, or just read a story where it has laughter in it, or show them books that have the different facial features and things in it. So things along that line. And eventually they'll begin to sit up. Now nobody says that, well, wait a minute, such and such, his baby is 7 months old and he's not sitting up, must be something wrong with him. Not necessarily. This is just a ballpark of where children should be, because we know that all children develop differently, you know, independent. So we have to take that into consideration. Yes, babies at this age like to reach out for things. So if you got on glasses, watch out.
Yes.
Because they will get a hold of them glasses and it's like, and you let go of my glasses. Like, or any other object that you may have there. So we take that into consideration, because they said as they're learning about the world around them, to be able to manipulate the things, and they're discovering what kind of things are going on, you know, with themselves, you know, as they do that. And they're starting to babble. So just making some sounds so we can babble those sounds back and put some language to it. Oh, you're talking to me. What are you talking about today? Are you telling me about your weekend? You know, just conversation, you know, as we go along. So the more they hear, the more they're apt to start doing that more and more. So as we get to 7 to 9 months, you know, we're gonna start getting into some movement, possibly some crawling. Once again, it all depends. Not all babies crawl. Some just get straight on up and go on about their business. You know, so, and it all depends. Or they can sit without support, depending. We can play patty cake and peekaboo. You know, those kinds of things are fun. And then start to pull up on things. So we want to be able to be there for those things to try to help them along. Now, one of the things that they talk about, responds to familiar words like their name. So it is very important that we call children by their names and not a nickname. I had a little boy that was 4 years old, and they called him, what did they call that little boy? But whatever it wasn't his name. So when they called him by his name, when they were doing the roll in preschool, he never answered. Because that's not what they called him. I think they called him Big Man or something like that. It's like, that is not your name. You know, so no sweeties, honeys, boo-boo. No, I need to call you by your name. So we want to be able to, we're calling children by their names. And then, yes, they may respond to no. While we try not to always overly saturate children with the word no, they still need to understand that that is something that if this child is really in danger behind something, then no is a quick, no, you are not welcome to do that. I need you to get down. But we can't bombard children with constant no. That's not what, you know, it's all about. So that's how we look at the 7 to 9 months, you know, as we go along. So, you know, if they say crawling, it could include scooting across the floor. Some children scoot across the floor. Some people do the army crawl. You know, some children do. You know, they're not up on the knees. They're just, hey, or the commando crawl, as some would call it. And then they can kind of go from there. So it all depends on the development of that particular child, where some may crawl, some may not. So we just have to be aware of that, you know, as we go along and look at everything. So then, any questions about young infants? Comments about young infants? So when we get to mobile infants, when they really start to move, and it varies, that's saying between 8 and 18 months, it all depends, they are eager to explore. They like to do things, that they're beginning to grasp things. At first it's always with the whole hand, but it will eventually get down to a pencil grip where they'll be able to pick up things a little more fine-tuned, you know, as they go along. They can hold small objects like Cheerios or something. They can pick it up, you know, with that one little finger and go from there. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at, you know, when we're talking about, you know, this age. So along with that age, we are looking at between 10 and 12 months. Once again, they're not necessarily an infant, and they're moving into the toddler phase because they should begin to be able to feed themselves, you know, some things. They should be able to say a few words, point at something if they want something. They may not have the words for it, but they can point to it. And then we add the words to it as we go along. Pretend play. Pretend play is good for them. You've probably seen some babies that'll pick up the little telephone and hold it on their shoulder and just be babbling because they've seen that. So they're going to mimic whatever it is that they've seen. And then they may be taking their first steps somewhere in here. But then again, once again, that varies because some children may not walk at 12 months. My son didn't walk till he was 18 months. He was just lazy. You know, because every time we turned around, all we did was pick him up. So what was the reason for him walking? Wasn't it's like they don't pick him up anyway, so might as well just take advantage. You know, so we look at that. They talk about the average is about 3 spoken words by the first birthday. But if we are constantly talking to them, not talking at them, put this back over here, sit down over there, come back over here, that's not talking to children. That is you just barking out commands. I need you to come up here and sit down with me, please. You know, it's regular conversation that we want to have. That's one of the things that we talk about in class. In the class observation is our quality of the feedback between you and that child. How is that feedback? Are you really talking to them, or are you just asking questions just to get an answer? What color is this? What shape is that? Who cares? That's not an issue for them right now. Let's sit down. I see you have the square blocks. Can you find some more square blocks? Let's go see if we can find some more. You know, that kind of thing. So as opposed to, I'm going to sit down and do a drilling skill. That's not what it's all about. We want to have meaningful conversation with babies, and that helps to develop their vocabulary, as they go on. And you'll find, and you'll be amazed that children will pick up and have a very good vocabulary because we've been talking to them, and we've been singing with them, and we've been doing different things, as we go along. So with this age, as they get older, you take into consideration the first steps, that are there. They say the average is about 14 months. It all depends on the child. Once again, we always say, but there's no stopping them at that point, because once they take those first steps, then we have to contend with children climbing on things. And they want to climb up, and they want to climb up on the table, and they want to climb up in the chairs, and wherever it is, somewhere to climb up. So we want to be aware of that. And so this is the time with this age that we really, really want to keep an eye on them, because of the fact that they're so active. And we take that into consideration. They may be moving out of the crib onto a mat, because in the crib, they have that opportunity to climb out. So we want to make sure that we are keeping them safe, in that sense. Okay, they've learned to walk. Now it's time to take off. I'm running everywhere. My son ran everywhere when he learned how to walk. After he learned how to walk, the first thing he did in the morning was run. He never walked down the steps. He was always jumping down the steps. As soon as the door opened, he took off. And most of probably in your room, Ashton, don't they, once they open the door, they're going to take off and go. They want to take off and run. That's what they do. But that is to be expected. And the question is can you keep up? Because we want them to expel a lot of that energy. Climbing up on stuff, as we've said, so we have to be prepared, for that as we move along, with them. So, but the thing of it is, they're gonna get older. They are working on their identity of who they are. That they are working on their independence. I can do it. I want to do it. So we need to allow them to do some things, for themselves, because they're the ones in charge of themselves. That's the thing that we kind of, sometimes I think we forget. It's like, well, I got to keep my children safe, but we're not there to do every waking thing for them and to control everything that they do. They have to have some autonomy, some independence, in what they're doing and as they go along. So between this age, that's what we're looking at. So with this age, this is what we're looking at. They're learning how to kick a ball. Hopefully. Sometimes they miss. A lot of times they miss. But it's the whole point of being able to do that, to be able to coordinate their bodies enough to do it, to make that connection. So we're looking at that. And then once they discover a ball, and they discover a ball can bounce, then they'll start to throw things. Yes, we throw things at this between these ages. They throw toys, they throw food, and other objects that might bounce along. So our help to them is based on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. So if we know that you may not throw food, we eat food. We can throw the ball, we can throw the ball outside. So we have to give them that direction that needs to go, along with that. We have to give them things to do with their hands to work on those fine motor skills. And that includes scribbling. Scribbling is good for children. They start here at a wide range, and as that development goes, it comes in and in and in until it's more fine-tuned. Because children's development goes from the out to inward as they develop. So we want to be sure that they have crayons that are available for them. Not necessarily a marker, they need crayons. They need chubby crayons. If you don't have chubby crayons, take 2 or 3 crayons, tape them together. The same thing, as they go along. And then learning to eat with a spoon. That's a chore. Have you seen some children learn to eat with a spoon, and they've got the spoon, they pick up the food, it falls off, but then they pick up the food with their hands, and then they eat it. And they forgot the spoon was in their hand, but that's okay. because it's a learning process for them to coordinate, to get that together. And then of course, when they get a little older, between 18 and 24 months, we're talking about make-believe. And them learning make-believe with talking on the phone, or pretending to play with the baby, or taking care of the baby. Those kind of things are really important for them, to be able to do. Because I'm gonna back up with, we're talking about the scribbling and stuff. They're not Picassos, but then again, they might be. They might have something there, but the early scribbles are excellent. Being able to play with activities or play with materials and not being told what to play with is the thing that they need to discover for themselves, and how to play with it. It doesn't have to be the way that we want them to play with it, as long as they are engaged. So if they're taking a block and they're using a block to pretend to iron clothes, it's not a problem. Because they know that something flat goes over things. They have that logic. So we're allowing children to be able to do things, to discover things on their own. And that helps them to want to be able to explore even more, as they go along. So with that, we get to when they're talking about real talk. That's when they're actually starting to give you some real words. Give you some real words, and if you choose to want to add sign language into that, that's a wonderful thing. For those that may not have the language, at that point. You should probably, by the time they're 2, they're talking about, you can probably hear some shorter sentences and things, depending on the development and how often they're talked to at home. That means a lot. So we want to be able to talk to them constantly and not just give, okay, oh, that's cute, that's nice. And I think that's something that we talked about the other day, using the term good job. Good job, when you say good job is satisfaction for you. It is not satisfaction for that child, because that child seems to think, in order for me to get something from the adults that are caring for me, I have to do something for them to say good job. Well, what did I do a good job on? You did a fantastic job of putting that chair under the table. Thank you so much. Thank you for cleaning up. That was wonderful. Anything that's going to talk about what they've done in the moment. You got to give them more than just that. So that's one of the things that we look at. Then they also get to the point of where they're learning to begin to play with other children. Not necessarily, not all the time. A lot of times children start out in solitary play. Jocelyn's age of children is more solitary play. If anything, if another child goes over to somebody in that room, they came to take a toy and go about their business. So it's not like, I don't play with you, I just want to get your hand. So, but when they get to Ashton's class, when they're beginning to do a little bit of parallel play. So they could be sitting beside each other, playing with similar objects, but still not playing with each other, because that's just where they are. But as they get older, they learn to kind of do a little bit of associative play. I can play a little bit with this person over here for a little while. Now, I don't know how long that's gonna last, because we that's why we want to make sure that when we have materials in the classroom, we have more than one of something, because everybody's gonna want that same little baby with the sparkly dress on. But if I don't have but one, there's gonna be a problem. So I want to make sure that I've got double of whatever is going on, and that way children may begin to play together, but they don't necessarily have to. Cooperative play does not happen until they get to be preschoolers. So we're not necessarily looking for them to be able to totally play together, but they have some socialization going on, and they're learning, to get along, with each other as they go along. So, that's a big help, for them. So with that, we're going to switch roles on there. We're going to look at caregiving routines. What routines are we supposed to have when we are working with children?
Feeding routines are special moments when caregivers can spend quiet time rocking and holding young infants. For toddlers, meaningful routines can affirm that they are capable of doing important things for themselves, There are many characteristics in the following routines that highlight the responsive care of the caregivers.
And bottom, top and bottom.
The caregiver describes what to do while washing hands, incorporating a song in the daily routine.
Now they're clean.
Parallel.
The caregiver highlights that after washing hands, she is going to feed her.
Germs all gone. Bye, germs. See you later. Okay, let's try your hands. We'll get the bottle. Are you ready? Yeah, I know. Oh.
Notice how the physical environment supports this routine, offering a clear pathway from the sink to the rocker and providing a calm, safe space to provide individualized feeding.
Okay, let's put the bib on. Yes, I know. Here we go. Yeah, we're gonna make sure you eat. Okay, here we go.
The caregiver holds and rocks the infant while feeding her a bottle. This routine helps support a strong relationship between the infant and her caregiver.
I was gonna feed you and give you a bottle.
This special time offers individualized, responsive care, which helps infants to feel safe, valued, and cared for. Partnering with families to facilitate routines with toddlers in your classroom will increase opportunities for development and reduce anxiety. Having cubbies near the sign-in supports autonomy for the child to put away their things and also gives families just a little more time together to adjust to the classroom environment. Notice how the environment is set up to allow for caregivers to have meaningful interactions with children before and during the meal. Many sinks in this environment allow for multiple children to accomplish washing their hands at once. A song to accompany this hand-washing routine could help these toddlers autonomously engage, offering an auditory cue and reminder about how long to wash, or even the steps in hand washing. The caregiver describes what the children are eating and characteristics about the food, like that it is cold. The caregivers are using multiple ways to communicate with the infants and toddlers in their classroom by speaking verbally, using sign language, and also using Spanish to identify the foods and their needs.
Elena está tomando leche. Milk? Leche? It's nice and cold.
This routine helps children identify things in their world